Hello everyone. I hope you're all safe and well. My name is Jenny Ames and I'm Director of Jenny Ames Consulting. I'm so pleased to welcome you to this series of short video podcasts concerning impact case studies for REF 2021. The podcasts are a series of what I call bite-sized tips. As well as being helpful for people involved in impact in REF 2021, these tips should also be useful for those of you who may have roles in future REFs. The tips are primarily for authors of impact case studies and impact case study support staff. They may also be of interest to leaders of sub-panel submissions, university REF managers, and indeed senior university managers. Some of the tips assume no previous knowledge at all of impact in the REF context, whilst others assume a good deal of previous knowledge. So today we have tip 4, and this tip is aimed at impact case study authors and impact managers who support them. It assumes some prior knowledge of the requirements for an impact case study. We're looking to address the question, what does a good corroborating source of impact actually look like? And I suggest we could break this down into 4 different points. So first of all, what do we mean by corroborating source? Then what do we actually need to corroborate? Can you give me some examples of good corroborating sources? And what should I bear in mind when selecting my corroborating sources? In particular, what should I avoid using? Well, most of the information to help you with this is available on the REF website under the Guidance tab. The relevant document is called REF 2019/02. If you have any problems accessing it, do view my first bite-sized tip to help you find it. The link to my website is on the second to last slide of this video podcast. So first, what do we mean by corroborating source? Well, put simply, this is something that substantiates or confirms the claims you make about the impact or the evidence of the impact you present. Corroborating sources may also substantiate the link between the impact and your underpinning research. Next, what needs to be corroborating? In section 4 of the impact case study template, you will be describing the impact achieved from your research. Part of the guidance within the template with respect to that section asks for a narrative with supporting evidence to explain 2 particular points. The first of these points is how the research underpinned or made a distinct and material contribution to the impact. And the second point is about explaining the nature and the extent of the impact. And by nature and extent of the impact, you need to include something about the significance and the reach of the impact, as well as indicators of the impact. So these are the points that you need your sources to corroborate. Just a quick note here. There is much more to be said about the nature and extent of impact and what to explain in section 4 of the case study template. I'll address this in at least one future podcast. The third question is, what are examples of corroborating sources? Well, section 5 of the template is where you give details of your corroborating sources. And a source might be, for example, a factual statement, which is sometimes called a testimonial, from a user of the research. Or it might be a report, or it could be a website. For example, these are all just examples. It might also be a report evaluating the impact achieved from your research. There are many other things that you could potentially use. Lastly, it's also worth covering things that would not count as corroborating sources of impact, things that you should avoid using as corroborating sources. First of all, the REF guidance asks that the sources that verify your impact claims are as independent as possible. They should not come from your university, and they should not be authored by you. Second, testimonials need to be factual and focus on confirming the evidence that you have presented about impact in Section 4. It's important that they do not read like a job reference. It's not the place for statements about, for example, how lovely you are to work with. Occasionally, it may be appropriate for the author of a testimonial to give an opinion, though. For example, regarding the extent to which the understanding of an audience is improved. However, the focus should be on factual statements wherever possible. Now, thirdly, make sure the sources corroborate your claims about impact. Remember that the reviewers do not want corroboration of events or activities that have taken place as part of the journey to impact. For example, press releases that announce an event do not by themselves corroborate impact. Numbers of attendees at an event do not on their own corroborate impact. Remember, your reviewers will not read your corroborating sources, but your sources are needed for auditing purposes. This means that any key information from these sources you want the reviewers to read must be included in Section 4 of the template. For example, it's good practice to quote key points from your sources to support your impact claims in Section 4. I do hope you found this podcast useful in helping you to understand what to think about when selecting your corroborating sources. After watching the podcast, I suggest you review the sources you've been thinking of using. Consider if they do confirm your claims of impact. Are they as strong as possible? Are all your key claims verified by your sources? Have you incorporated key quotes from some of them in the impact section of your case study? Should you strengthen them or consider replacing any of your sources? You might want to discuss all of this with your impact manager or a senior researcher, such as your unit of assessment leader. Then I suggest that you review my previous bite-sized tips and posts. They're on my website, and the address is shown here. So thank you very much for watching and listening to this podcast. Send me an email if you'd like me to cover something specific. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you again soon for the next bite-sized tip. Bye for now.